Hope everyone's doing well. Welcome to the MAGIA Mindset. Today's guest has competed at the highest level in the States within the NWSL, has competed at the highest level in Finland, in Japan, as well as Australia within the W League. It is my absolute pleasure to welcome our guest, Bev Yanez. Roll the intro. Thank you so much. I know it's a very busy time as we're transitioning back during, a very interesting, let's just put it that way, year. It has been worldwide, but especially in the world of sports. I mean, talk about every aspect, especially we had a significant death yesterday that happened. I believe it was the actor of Black Panther, but it's just been a heavy year all around in so many angles. You can go politically, you can go with the pandemic, you can go with significant sports figure like Kobe Bryant passing away in January and her family that were a part of that flight. So I truly appreciate you putting in the time and kind of coming and talking about the beautiful game.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
A pleasure. What I wanted to start our dialogue with was kind of transitioning as a professional player to coach. And how is it a perspective as a retired pro? Because some people were like, oh, this is what it's going to look like. They're still 18 getting started. Somewhere towards the end, haven't retired yet. Okay, this is what it's going to look like. It's all expectations. You're going through it. You're living it. And I want to kind of talk about that aspect and what has been the rewarding feelings, but what has been the challenging parts as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I think for me, I coached during season as well. So when the Development Academy existed, I was working with the Rain Academy. So I did about 2 or 3 years of coaching, especially in the off season, but I also coached during season, very limited, obviously, due to the mental and physical exertion from just playing. But in the off season, I was full blown. In season, very little. But I always enjoyed coaching. I also ran a soccer coaching business with my husband for 5 years of small group trainings. And I think I just really enjoyed the fact that during coaching, a lot of the points that you're making to these youth athletes are points that you still need to work on yourself. So I always found it fascinating to coach and play, because a lot of what I was saying in the constant nagging of check your shoulders, I was, like, wow, I need to check mine a lot more too. Like, these are scenarios I see myself in games, and advice that I could give these players at the highest level that at my age I didn't understand, or no one broke it down for me, or I didn't have a mentor, or whatever it was. So I always enjoyed that side. Now, having been retired for almost about 6 or 7 months now, it's been an interesting transition without having the soccer side. I think at first I felt really lost, and it's all I've ever known. Since I was 5 years old, I had the dream of becoming a women's professional soccer player, and it's what I pursued. I had such a vision, and it was like, this is what I want to go do. And every choice that I made and every decision I made was evolved around that, and how I could be the best version of myself as a player, but also as a person, and how I could grow with the game. So I think for me, I got to the point where it was like, whoa, I don't have this, something that I've had my entire life and I've strived for. And once I got there, it was, how do I be better? And how do I continue to get better as a person and a player? And without that, I felt really lost. It didn't hit me really, I will say, like right away. And I think that's because of the pandemic and the slow start to the season and stuff like that. But once this tournament kicked in and I had, wanted to watch every game, I couldn't miss a game. And I realized, oh my gosh, like, this is so crazy. It's so different for me. But I will say that the coaching side has been a ton of fun, and it's something that I've realized I'm really passionate about, and my want to give back to the women's game. I didn't realize how passionate I was about that side of it, because I've always been involved in it, right? And now being on the outside, I'm like, oh my gosh, like all this is, all these experiences I had for the past 9 years, I'm realizing, wow, I want to give back to the women's game, and I want to give back specifically in that area of the sport. So it's been fun to dabble with that side and see what I'm like as a coach. I have so much growth in the coaching side, but I know that if I take the same aspect I did as a player, which is there's always something you could be better at. And no matter how experienced you are and how far you come along with the game, there's always something you could be better at. And if you have that aspect, you'll always grow. So now I'm starting in the lower stages of my coaching career. And that's the aspect I'm going to take because it helped me be so successful as a player and as a teammate. So I know that I'm going to use those tools to kind of carry over to the next phase of my life. But I will say it's been a tough transition, and still like thinking about not playing soccer is just weird. But I have been like still training and playing, and it's like, it's just a part of you, and it's something that you've always loved. So it doesn't really ever just go away. Obviously, I'm not doing it at a very highly competitive level. But I'm still like, I still want to get touches on the ball. It's what made me smile for so many years of my life. So yeah, it's been fun and interesting, and I'm learning a lot. And it's been a good transition so far.
That's so fascinating about talking about the transition, and you're living it right now as well. Especially when you come out and all you've been doing is playing the sport as long as you have. And the ultimate goal when they ask you at that age is, I want to play, and I want to play at I want to compete at the highest. And then when you get towards the end now, a lot of players were like, man, that was my ultimate goal. I achieved it and I'm moving on now. And I got to prepare for that next journey.
Yes.
And I got to be competitive, and I got to embrace it. So I can still be competitive, and I still want to be involved in the game. And maybe it's for Bev is coaching. For maybe someone else, it's being an agent, being within the game. Maybe they don't want to do the coaches with the player, but they want to be from the outside in or the inside out. They want to be a part of it. Kind of, I want to transition to the next difficult challenge you're embracing as well. What you're in pregnancy right now, and
yes.
What stage are you in before we get into this?
Of course, today is week 25, so I'm just over 6 months.
6 months. I mean, that's amazing. That's amazing.
Thank you.
On that, and hopefully
it
continues to go in a successful way.
Thank you.
My question is pregnancy, especially for an athlete. Especially for an athlete that throughout your life, you're active. You have a regimen. You wake up in the morning, you go for your run. If it's before session, you're getting your treatment and you're getting all that protocols you're getting. But now you're coaching. How has, let's say, the active lifestyle that you had to adapt to and the changes you had to make, or not changes, maybe increase or something to keep it going, keep yourself balanced? What have you done to kind of allow you to get through this too?
Yeah, and I think for us, both my husband and I were very shocked when we found out. We were like, oh my gosh, okay, this is the next, part of the next chapter of our lives, and very excited about it. I mean, we've been together for 18 years. We dated for 10 before we got married, and then we've been married for 8 years. So we met when I was 14 in high school. So we have such a bond through the game of soccer, but more importantly, we have a good friendship. And I always say that in a really good relationship, you have to have a good friendship, and understanding that I always wanted him to pursue his career as a men's soccer player, and I always wanted to pursue mine, and we respected that. And we encouraged each other to do that. And if we came together, we came together. But luckily, we did come together. And now through this next phase of our lives and prepping for a little one, it's extremely exciting. But I think for me, it's, playing at the highest level, you play at a comfortable weight. You train at a certain weight. You lift muscles to put on in certain areas. You're very tailored to your body and in what ways your body can exert the most it possibly can, the strongest it can, endurance wise, etc. So to enhance your performance ultimately for the team. So I think for me, it's just been so interesting to obviously put on weight. I'm like, oh my gosh, every time I come in for my checkup, they're like, okay, you're at this. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm putting on like a lot of weight. I've never, seen this number on the scale for me personally. So it's been a good balance of still staying physically active. I'm not competing for a preseason. I'm not exerting a ton, but I'm still active. I wake up every day. I work out every day. I do a little bit of lifting every day still. And I play still, like for fun. I'm obviously not scrimmaging and stuff like that, but I'm getting touches on the ball still. And so I think for me, it's been cool to be a part of that and realize like, hey, I can still do some things and still stay active and still feel healthy and live an active lifestyle. But just obviously in what's most important for my pregnancy, which is having a healthy little one. So just finding out the balance of that has been like a little bit different for me, and being used to like, hey, this is not a playing weight thing anymore. This is what's best for this baby. And I do think, having a little bit of an active lifestyle is super healthy, and boosting that immune system constantly. So yeah, it's been different, but I still feel like myself. I will say, however, the first trimester was so incredibly tough. I had no idea. I know it's different for every female, every woman out there is very different. But man, I was so tired all the time. I was very, very, very hungry. And then I went through a bunch of food aversions of foods that I've eaten for so many years that I love so much that I couldn't even look at. So it was just weird. You get used to, what am I going to have for pregame? I need to have a protein shake after training. You get used to this rhythm of the way that you live life and what you eat and everything like that. And it kind of just flips your world around. Like, okay, listen to your body. And I will say that's the biggest part, is that I feel like as an athlete, I know my body very well. I know when I'm not feeling right. I know when something's bothering me. You have to be very in tune with your body because you've had to this entire time in order to play at your peak performance. So I will say for me, it's like, when the doctors say, just listen to your body. If you wake up in the middle of the night and you need a little snack, just listen to your body. Go get that little snack. It's what's best for you. When you're working out, just work out. And if you're feeling like you're breathing heavy, then you need to stop. It's been a lot of listen to your body. And that's a lot of the advice I've been given as an athlete from health professionals. And I feel like it's been really good for me because I'm very in tune with it. And I very much so understand my body. So it's been fun. It's been fun to show other women and show people like, hey, I'm still doing my thing. I got a little one coming along and I am still working out, because it is a little bit of a fear. I'll admit it myself. When I first started, I'm like, I don't know if I can work out. What can I do? And so it's been fun to share that with people through my social media and stuff like that. But we are just absolutely thrilled. Like the thought of bringing someone into this world is like, what? And then, obviously it's a crazy time right now with the pandemic going on. So it's just a lot of thoughts in my head, but I've chosen to enjoy the pregnancy to the most of my ability and just be excited and ready for this. So.
No, I mean, it's funny how life is a teacher within itself. Sports is a teacher within itself. And, you touch base on the doctors and it's good to have those kind of doctors that say, listen to your body. Because sometimes growing up, have we had coaches that don't listen to it? I mean, your body's not strong enough. Push. Yeah. What are you talking about? Your body is screaming, stop, push, break. And you're like, coach, my hamstring just gave out because you told me to push. But instead, if you're listening to your body, you can feel it getting tight. And it's my honest truth is the coach before was probably the knowledge of coaches wasn't as high as it is now. The knowledge of education behind the doctors, it's not today. Remember back then, you get an ACL tear, it's not coming back from. Now people are coming back from ACLs like no other. So it's huge in what the youth have in front of them with the education being put out there. Yeah. You kind of touched on it. I want to kind of get into it. So you're a former professional player. Your husband is a former professional player, also played at the highest level too. Yes. To me, usually those relationships, in my opinion, is like the best situation because you guys both, when it clicks, because you guys get each other. You know what it took to get there. Now the transition phase, you're in it together. And it's hard when someone's in a different world and
Totally.
you bring them in the football world, but it feels like there's a lot of positives in it. My thing is, can we kind of talk about what are the positives of, being professional athletes? What are the stuff that you guys kind of try to set up on your day-to-day basis? Because you guys are not just an average couple. You guys are former professional players that are transitioning to your next phase of life. What does, the day-to-day look like? And how do you guys balance it and the positives you guys make work happen?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think for me, it's like, I know I mentioned earlier that we met when we were 14 years old. Well, I was 14, he was 15 years old. But looking back on it now, being 32 years old, a baby along the way, a lot of thoughts naturally come to your head of, wow, that is actually so crazy that we met so young and we're still together and we're about to start a family. But I remember being in that moment. And I think the biggest thing for me was, I don't know how, but at 14, I knew who I was. And I know that's not the case for a lot of people. You're still figuring out, who the heck am I? What am I going to do? Do I want to go to college? Do I want to keep playing soccer? Like, there's just so many questions. You're so young and life feels so overwhelming. And so I think for me, it was like, I had this passion to play, that it was like, it was who I was. And I chose everything accordingly. I chose my friends wiser because I knew I had, to train 3 days a week and I wanted to be better than that. So I was training 5 days a week, 2 times on my own, playing pickup with some friends. And, I knew I couldn't be out late because I had to get up the next day. And it ran my world. And looking back, because I was so driven and so ready to go for this, I didn't think like, I'm gonna be this. It was like, I'm gonna go for it. And if I fall short, I fall short, but at least I'm giving everything I have, even at that young of an age. So for me, it was like, this is so cool that I have a boyfriend, you know what I mean? Like, this is awesome. He's like really cute. This is so cool. But like, it never deterred me. It was like, either you are going to help make my life better and impact it in a positive way, or I don't want you in it. And that was very much so how I was raised, was be around people that you want to be around. Treat people the way that you want to be treated. And the world will kind of figure itself out. Not to say I didn't have any roller coaster moments throughout my life. Of course, 100% I did. But even if you don't know who you are, just figure out what makes you tick, what makes you you, what makes you feel valuable, what makes you, and I think that helps drive you. So it was like, when I met him, I'm like, this is great, but hey, I'm going to do my thing. We're not going to do this whole, let's pick a school where we both want to go to so we can be together. It was like, you do your thing, I'll do my thing, but we are in this together and we're going to support each other. And I think that's where it really started to click, like, okay, we can do this. And he went to a completely different college. I went to Florida. He was in Louisville, Kentucky. And that's just it. We just understood each other. It was like, hey, I can't talk. We're traveling today. And I knew what that was like. I knew what it was like when it came to the NCAA tournament and you secretly were like, I hope you get in. But in the back of your mind, you're like, I hope he doesn't get in so you can fly and see me earlier, but you're like, would never obviously tell him that. So it was just like a lot of what we knew, each other was going through. And I think for me, once we made it to that pro level and we both got drafted in the same year, it was so nice to be able to go through with someone that I had, been seeing for a long time at that point, and to understand like, hey, we're, we got drafted, but that doesn't mean that we are, full-heartedly getting offered contracts. Like, there's a next phase to it. And then it's like, okay, now I have to fight for a position. And, so it was just a lot of understanding each other and setting those goals and setting those boundaries of like, hey, my phone's off at 9:00. We got to chat before 9. If we aren't able to, then we aren't. So I think it was just setting those goals and those boundaries and trying to make things work. And any break we got, we tried to go and see each other. And I think it just ended up working out, So the balance of understanding that we both wanted to pursue those pro careers, we both had the opportunity to. We were both drafted in the same year, and finding that balance of what was going to continue to push us, and that's where I think we really started to bond. Was we were both going through a rookie season together, and everybody knows what that feels like on a college level, on a new team level. It's tough being the new kid. You don't know how things work. You don't know anyone. You don't know the training fields. You don't know. It's just a lot. It's a lot going on. So I think it was nice to be able to lean on someone and be able to help each other through it and experience what the different lifestyle was like, and still share our love for the game that we had since we were, a lot younger. So the transition it was fun. It was fun to experience it with someone, and he didn't play a ton. He didn't play after that season. He decided that for him, it wasn't as fun. And that's all. That was basically the reason why he played his entire life. Was it was always so much fun for him, and for some reason he couldn't find the fun in it at the high level like that. And he made the decision. And I always ask him every so often, like, do you miss it? And he's like, yeah, and I always wonder, did he just make a decision in the moment, or was it truly how he felt? And he sticks by it, 9-10 years later, or, does he wish he went back? There's so many what ifs. I can only imagine what it would be like to be in that position, but he's a fantastic coach. And he just has a passion and love for breaking the game down. And so I truly believe that's what his calling is, to each their own. But I truly believe he's just got a knack and a special talent for breaking the game down and understanding players and what those needs are at every different level and age and ability. So I've been thoroughly impressed with kind of his coaching career from then on out and today.
No, that's great. And, sometimes they always say, it takes a village, it takes a team to be successful in anything. And, it just makes it easier. I mean, what a lucky future your child will have being more male, just because, you have a stable family, a mom and a dad to kind of lean on. And if their passion is soccer or whatever it is, you guys know how to properly map it. And I think those are the tough things some parents get lost in asking the coach, this is our first child. We don't know this world. And I think you guys, doesn't matter what world they go into, because you guys played it and now you're coaching, you're a teacher in the game. It's the same thing in other fields. You got to properly understand who's the coach. Obviously, that's important, who you select as your child's coach, what it becomes. If it goes into football, I don't know if it's going to be mom or dad as the coach. That's
exactly.
Interesting. My next transition I want to get into is the mindset. I know it's so, for me, everything starts from the neck up. And I truly am a firm believer. I look, anything you want to be at the elite, you got to be talented. I agree with that. But I think even if you do not have the talent, but you're mentally so strong and driven, you can properly, with the right environment, right coaches, become successful and have a career in that path if you properly map it. You playing at that level and going from every level, getting there, now that you're a coach and you're looking back, as well as your husband doing it and having a relationship and talking it out, what are, in your opinion, key qualities to be able to sustain it for so long in your youth, then collegiate, and then finally go surrounded by the best of the best and come day in, day out? What are the key qualities a player must have and be ready for?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think you have to have expectations. And I say that all the time, a lot in my small group training sessions for me physically as the coach, I can't make your legs move. I can't pump your arms for you. If I could, I'd help you because that's my personality and I would totally do it for you. But I cannot do it. So you either choose to be here and you choose to show up to get better, or you choose to just show up. That's your choice every single day. And I think I 100% agree with the mindset, because if you come in with the right attitude, you grow. If you come in just to show up, and you're just there, you don't grow, and you also don't help the people around you grow because you're not playing at your best, which means that they're not getting your best. So I think for a lot of times I try to present that to players of, even if you can't look at it in your own perspective, maybe you can understand it from, you're not helping the people around you when you're not playing at your best. And it's not even necessarily at your best. It's playing with heart. That's your choice. Work ethic is a choice. I can choose to lose. I don't necessarily choose to lose the ball. I'm trying to do something and I want to be successful at it and I want to get around this player, of course. But if the player outsmarts me in that situation, takes the ball from me, I have a choice to go get it back, to go get myself in a position to help my team. I have a lot of choices to still be involved in that play. That is a choice. And so I think for me, growing up, I was very hard on myself. I had such high expectations, but I was always kind of like, the player that my team relied on. When I was younger, it was like, I was a star player kind of. And it was like, we always rely on you. And I loved that feeling of like being relied on, because it was like, I want to bring this team, I want to help this team as much as possible. And I really enjoyed that. But throughout my career, I started to realize like, I'm starting to mess with my work ethic a little bit, right? When I'm losing it, I'm not necessarily chasing it back. I'm so frustrated. I'm slapping my leg because I'm like, all these people are looking up to me and I can't lose it. This is a problem. And I'm slapping my leg. My body language is poor. But that was my view. And I realized I need to be at the bottom and I need to see all these people ahead of me and I need to work my way up. And I need to show that I can be an example both on and off the field, but my work ethic alone is the choice that I make. And I want people to follow me and I want people to ask me for help and ask me for guidance and want to fight for me out in the field because of my work ethic, right? We all have those flashy players on the team. But everybody respects the work ethic. The player that works the hardest, everyone respects. How can you be mad at them? They're trying their absolute best, And so from then on out, I kept telling myself, no matter what team I'm on or what situation it is, I want to be a player that has to constantly push to even, be in the group with the players and find a way to rise to the top, to the occasion. That was my personality, was I wanted to be pushed to rise to the top. And so I think for me, having those expectations, having them high, but also knowing that like, you're going to fail. I tell kids all the time, like if I coached you right now and told you that, if you do this a million times, you'll never mess up, I'd be lying to you. You could do this a million times and go and take a PK in the World Cup final and still miss. It's just what it is. You train it because you want to be perfect at it, but we're not perfect. So you have to train the brain too, to be confident enough to step up and go, I did this a million times. Here I go again, right? Because if this isn't matching your feet, there's no winning. You have to have the brain matching with the feet and the confidence. And that's the point of doing extra. And that's the point of being on the ball all the time, is that you start to get so comfortable with it. So now it's natural. I'm not in the game going, oh, here comes the ball. It's bouncing in the air. Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And it bounces off your shin. And you're like, I knew that was going to happen. It's like, yeah, of course. You're telling yourself the entire time it's traveling to your feet. That's exactly what's going to happen. Right? But when you train on your own or you train in your team environment and you're on the ball a ton, you've had that ball several times. So now as it's coming, you're like, here we go. I'm already thinking about what I'm going to do with it because it's traveling. And now I'm already like, okay, who am I going to give it to? Now I'm not thinking about my first touch anymore. I've got that down. That's rhythm. Some of the greats in the game are confident, right? I always think there's a borderline between confidence and cocky. Right? You can be a very confident player and be a very good teammate. Those are 100% possibilities. And that's a choice that you make. And I told myself that my entire career. Of course, when I hung my boots up, I wanted people to say she was good, right? Of course, we all want that. But I knew I wasn't excellent. I knew I wasn't a star. But you know what I did know is I told myself that at the end of the day, when it was time to hang the boots up, if people felt like I was a good teammate, I was a winner. Because I had this incredible ability to put myself in other people's shoes. And I tried to remember that my entire life. I tried to remember what it was like to be a rookie the first year in the league, what it was like to be 2 years in the league, and still not getting much playing time and being like, did I make the wrong decision? 3 years in the league, I'm getting a little bit more playing time, but I don't really understand the style of play here. Do I fit in? Now I'm, an older player in the league, and so many young players coming in and asking like, hey, where's the gym at? How do we get to the gym? Like, what time do you have, and helping. And I always tried to put myself in those shoes. And did I do it all the time? No, of course not, because I'm not perfect, but I tried to be a good teammate and be the best teammate that I could possibly be, and be confident. And it's something I struggled throughout my entire career with, because I didn't want to be too confident. That wasn't my personality. I tried to downplay when things happened, where it was like, did you see that pass? Wow, I guess I was passing to my mom in the stands, but it made me feel good to joke about it, because I'm like, I can't believe that pass. It's embarrassing, And I always struggled with that, with my confidence, but I never struggled with my work ethic. And I think that if I had more confidence in what I was good at, I think still, even to this day, even being 7 months retired, I think I'd be a different player. And I think that's just it, is understanding who we are and what makes us us. And every time that I'm put on the field, they know exactly what they're getting from Bev every time she gets on the field, right? And I think we do this thing a lot in youth soccer, and I think especially with females, is we like to compare. And it's like, well, she's so good at crossing, I'm never going to be that good at okay, but maybe you're good 1v1, right? So stop looking at what they have, look at what you have. You're here for a reason. And what is your value? What are your strengths? And you have challenge areas. And if someone doesn't tell you have challenge areas, they're lying to you. You have challenge areas, and guess what? You're going to have them. Messi has them. Everyone has them, right? And it never stops. The grind never stops. You always want to be better at something. And I think for me, it's just finding out kind of what areas of my game I could be better at and how I could improve in those areas, and making sure that, I did my best throughout my career to focus on those areas. But like I said in the beginning, work ethic is a choice, and we all have that choice every single day. And the greatest players, I'm sure you've seen the Michael Jordan documentary. I'm sure you've seen a lot of documentaries, is they come to play. They work all the time. The ball is stuck at their hand. The ball is stuck at their feet. It's a part of them. They live and breathe the game, and it's because of how much they love it and how big of a passion they have for it, and how much they are able to succeed from that as well. So,
no, Bev, I thought it was so great how we even touched on your rookie year, and you even talked about the playing time.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people, you can even go on that Michael Jordan documentary or any highest performers, that forget about the high performers. If they really love something, they're really passionate about it. And it becomes to a point, you hit stuff that is getting difficult to continue. It's forcing to want to quit. And it gets, and nothing, I don't feel, there are some other careers too, that is as difficult as the sport industry, as let's just say the football industry, the soccer industry. On the sense that it's the most popular game in the world. On the women's side, it's still growing. I mean, probably during the time you were playing it, financially, I mean, to this day, I don't think they're still getting, the female athletes are getting paid what they deserve, and you have to balance your pay and say you're coming home, you see that check, and you're like, and then you're going the next day to wake up and grind with that, balance your life to put in that work because you want to be the best. That's a lot on someone's plate, especially your first 3 years. I want to sort of talk about those first 3 years as you're transitioning from a college athlete. Unless I mean, am I kind of on it? How the transition was probably the most challenging from a college athlete to your first 3 years as a pro, where you end up questioning, is this a career for me? Talk about those moments and how you were able to push past it and have yourself not just a year, an experience, but a career. What qualities that you had to kind of dig back and search in yourself to find?
Yeah, and I think for me it was like, oh my gosh, like when I got drafted back then, there was only a draft on Twitter, and even seeing now the progression in the women's game and what the draft looks like now, and how players are there and they get to show the scarves and stuff like that. I mean, there's been so much progression, even just from when I was drafted in 2010. So within the 10 years, I've seen a lot of progression, and I think for me it was, you come out of college and you're like, of course, as a senior, being drafted into league, you're playing so many minutes, right? You're captaining your team probably. And you get drafted and you get there and there's the shock of, I might not play. Like, there's players that are 10 years older than me that play for the US national team, the Brazilian national team, the Japanese national team, that have so much experience internationally at World Cups, at Olympics, that you're just like, oh my gosh, you kind of get humbled a little bit. You kind of sit back down and you're like, okay, but it's a new grind that starts, right? It's a new grind of like, how do I contribute at this level? This is what I wanted all my life. And I just worked my butt off for 4 years in college to be able to have an opportunity to be drafted here. Now it's a new grind. And I think it's setting up those new grinds and being up for those new challenges of, it's not just, this is what I wanted to be since I was a little girl. And I kind of just made my way through each thing. And I tell players this all the time. There is no booklet. No one has ever written it. No one will ever write it. There is no pathway to become a pro. It is your life. It is your choices. It is your adventure. It is your work ethic. It is you being in the right place. There's so many factors that go into it. And if I could write the book, I would, and I'd give it to everyone. I'd get everyone a copy. Okay. But in 10 years, nine and a half years of playing pro, okay, every single person's story is different. And that's what makes the game so beautiful. Right? My last year of being a part of the NWSL, we had a rookie named Beth Balser who came from an NAIA school to try out for us. She gets here and we're all turning heads like, this girl might have something, right? And then as the first game starts trickling closer and closer, she gets offered a contract. Then due to injuries, she starts first game of the season. She finished the season as the leading goal scorer on our team and rookie of the NWSL, coming from an NAIA school. Anything is possible. And that's what I love about her story in particular, is that so many people would have been like, well, I'm never going to get a chance, and this is where I came from, and I have to play at, the ACC conference in order to even get a sniff, right? Anything is possible. And it's in your hands of kind of where you make it your story. And if you fall short, you fall short, but at least at some point you realize you've given it everything you have. And I just think the transition can be very difficult because you get there and, for me too, I sat down and across the way is like Abby Wambach all the way at the end of the locker room. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is someone I've idolized. And now I'm sharing a locker room with her. Like, this is so crazy. And how do you bottle up those emotions of like looking around and seeing, Ali Long's on your team and Ashlyn Harris and Becky Sauerbrunn and Homare Sawa and Sonia Bonpasteur of France. And it's just like, you're like, oh my gosh, like I'm even just so lucky to be in this locker room with them. And I think that's when the mindset changes, right? It's not like, hey, if I do get an opportunity to make an impact my rookie year, yay. But all of a sudden your mindset has to change to, I have an opportunity to learn from the best females playing the sport in the world right now. Or I have an opportunity to pout about playing time. Your choice. Right? And once I changed my mindset, all of a sudden I couldn't stop learning. Right? And I think that's what some people have to understand, is that Messi wasn't just Messi. Right? And a lot of female star athletes, they weren't just stars right out of the gate. They had an opportunity. They ran with it. They were addicted to getting better. They just rose to the top, right? Because their work ethic and staying up late and shooting free throws and showing up before practice and shooting free throws for an hour. No wonder they're good at free throws. You put in the work, you get the rewards. You can't just show up to practice. We say it all the time. You win games Monday through Friday. You don't win games on the weekend, right? Monday through Friday, Monday through Friday, Monday through Friday, putting in the work, putting the game's your reward. And I think the constant reminder of that, and throughout that transition of I have to find a way to be successful, and little small victories will allow me at some point to be an impactful player in this league. And I truly believe that, by the time I left the league, I did feel like an impact player. I don't think I was ever a flashy player or a player that was relied on, but I know that my teammates, and at least I hope, knew that I would do anything for them. And I would sprint all the way back and try and save a goal, and then sprint all the way forward and try and score. It was just my personality.
No, I mean, I loved the new grind,
Mm-hmm.
creating that new grind, and
Mm-hmm.
finding that place to kind of keep pushing. And I think anything, you live life one time, you live life
Mm-hmm.
once, and everybody has a calling and whatever. But the main thing is, look, the sport of soccer has wrinkles to it. Playing,
Mm-hmm.
coaching, managing, owning,
Mm-hmm.
being an owner, being an agent, however branches you want to have in it. But if you're in the sport, in the world long enough, you stick at it, it's
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
you're in it long enough, you're the remaining piece of it. As long as you go, especially if you love it, it won't be a drag because
Yeah.
you love the sport.
Mm-hmm.
I always say to anyone, if whatever, I don't want to say soccer because I love it or you love it,
Mm-hmm.
but whatever you love in life, go pursue that, because
Mm-hmm.
there's no substitute about attacking something with
Yeah.
passion. With passion, because if you're not passionate, that hard work, it's still not hard work. Because if
Mm-hmm.
you're passionate about it, that hard work, it's easy working. I love it. I love striking a ball. I love to
Mm-hmm.
strike the ball on the right side of the ball, knowing that I want to correct it to hit the middle of it, and every
Mm-hmm.
time fine tuning it. So thank you so much for
Totally.
doing that, Bev.
Of course.
What I want to transition to now is on the female side, and I know, to me, I think coaching female is different than coaching male. And I
Mm-hmm.
know people can agree or disagree in so many
Mm-hmm.
aspects of it. But I want to go and ask you, a female professional athlete, coming coach
Mm-hmm.
now, putting yourself in a shoe, because you get to put yourself in their shoes emotionally, things that you felt as well, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
however coaches communicate with you. How do you coach the female athlete? What
Mm-hmm.
should coaches focus on to empower and enhance the female athletes to maximum performance? And why are those the main things to focus on? Because
Mm-hmm.
it forces them there. Or, like you said, everybody has their own story of making it as a professional. There is no written formula for it. It's
Mm-hmm.
not the same way on the coaching of female athlete. I want to kind of dive into that and kind of see where we can take this conversation.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think there's some differences, and I think there's some similarities as well. And I think that it's a very interesting topic for me because I've coached both boys and girls, and more recently, I've coached a lot of boys and girls, more specifically. And I get some, 15 to 19-year-olds on both ends, male and female. Um, but I think there's some differences, but like I said, I also think there's a lot of similarities. And I think for the most part, in my experiences, and myself included when I was younger, is I feel like females want to know how they're developing, why they're developing. They want to know you care. Are you going to enhance this aspect of my game? How do I enhance this aspect of my game? Whereas I feel like more on the boys' side is they want to know if coach can play, right? Even sometimes when I'm coaching boys, like all of a sudden I'll be like, this is what I want to see. I want to see here, strike. What? Yeah. I can do that. I can do a lot more cool stuff too. But you get my picture. We get my flow. You guys ready to go? And it's like, oh, okay. Oh, snap. If coach can jump in and play, woo, right? But you have females that feel the same way too. You have females that you coach where they're like, you got to show me. Right. And then you have some boys that are like, you got to show me you care. So I don't think there is a written script. I don't think you coach females this way. You coach males this way. You coach the players. What are your players' needs? What do your players need? What makes them tick? And I would say that is the most difficult thing as a coach. And I never understood it because as a player, I'm like, why don't they get that? I don't like when it's like, hey, the coach from the other team doesn't rate you, show them wrong, show them. And it's like, no, I don't tick. I'm starting to think, why don't they rate me? Am I really not that good? Oh my gosh. Whereas some players would be like, oh, heck no. I'll show him exactly what he's missing, blah, blah, blah. So you got to know your players and you got to know what makes them tick. And I thought that was an easy process. And I was always like, I don't understand why the coach doesn't know, how I don't tick. How is that not a thing? They have 22 players, especially at the pro level. You're diving into even more numbers than that and trying to figure it out. And I think at the pro level, you have it narrowed down a little bit more as a player of like what makes you tick, and you almost reward things or do things to make sure that you're ticking because it's kind of your responsibility as well. But when you're younger, you're like still trying to figure out who the heck you are as a player, and what attributes you have and what makes you you and what you need to work on. And so you really rely on the coach to understand kind of what makes you tick. And so I would say that there is no written script for boys, girls, none of that. I would say you need to cater to the players and what your specific style of play and what you're trying to get your players to get out of it in order to develop, right? I think overall we need to do a better job developing players. And I think for me, a lot of the player that I was at the pro level was the amount of time I spent on the soccer ball, just playing pickup. I was playing pickup like 5 days a week. 7th period PE was soccer with the boys. I was training with the high school girls soccer team and then the boys high school soccer team. And I was playing club soccer 3 days a week. I was on the ball all the time. And I know that's what made, and you see it all the time, especially in a culture where they play like street soccer and they're on the ball, not even a ball sometimes, just something that's at their feet all the time, right? They get used to the movement. They understand the game-like situation. They're placed in those game-like situations. And I think for me as a coach, it's been something that I've tried to remember over and over is I want to do something that's like, yes, like, do you get it? Do you see this drill? But at the same time, I always ask myself, does this translate to the game? If it doesn't translate to a game, I'm wasting their time. It has to translate to the game. And we just need a culture, in my opinion, more in the US of just playing pickup. Just play. Just get on the ball, play. And all of a sudden you'll start to realize things you didn't even notice before, right? And watch more soccer. Like, it's not the number one sport in our country, which, okay, that's totally fine. There's a lot of cool sports. I totally get it, right? But in other countries, it's the number one sport. These kids grow up watching it, go outside, play it. Grow up watching it, go outside and play it. And it's this constant thing of they see things, they have a chance to execute them. They watch them again, they have a chance to execute them. And then they're training with their club. It just all is full circle. And I think at some point, I think our culture personally is going a lot towards soccer now, more than we've ever seen before. But there was so many times in my earlier youth career, in my earlier pro days where I would be at the pro level and people would say, I don't watch soccer. I'm like, what? What do you mean you don't watch soccer? What? That's insane, and to each their own. Some people, they need to click off, right? They need to click off. They can't watch it a ton because it's like, they'll start overthinking their game, but at the youth level, I think we need to watch more soccer. And I think it's a huge part of our development. And so that's what I would say. And it's been a struggle for me too, to find out what style of a coach am I? What is my style? Figuring that out. And a lot of responsibility weighs on you for that, right? What's the style? How do you want the players to develop? What areas of the game do you want the players to develop? How do they develop in the technical, tactical, physical, mental side, all while they're being coached by you? So there's just a lot of questions throughout coaching that I never saw as a player. And I'm really happy that I'm getting the opportunity now to experience it because I had a lot of respect before and I have so much respect now for a lot of the good coaches that I've had.
No, I mean, I loved how you even said there is no difference of boys and girls
Mhm.
and men. And I
Mhm.
there isn't difference. There's a whole
Mm-mm.
chain of naive coaches telling a
Mhm.
boy or a man, stop
Mhm.
playing like a girl.
Mhm.
Stop acting like a girl. You're so emotional like a girl. Or
Mhm.
to the young lady, hey, grow up, you know, and and
Mhm.
and just using stereotypes where I think
Mhm.
it's lazy and not kind of
Totally.
dissecting and being complex about the mindset and finding ways that look, it's not that they're playing this way or that way. That's who they are emotionally, individually. Maybe they're the one, maybe Harry needs the arm around his shoulder. Maybe
Mhm.
the other one needs a little kick behind. You know,
Totally.
it's but it doesn't mean that they're a guy or a girl. It just means who they are as an
Yes.
individual. And I
Correct.
totally agree with that. I totally agree with that. But I think but labeling them, it's the cop out. It's the easy
Mhm.
one where you don't
Mhm.
psychologically now have to
Mhm.
set up a curriculum for those individuals. But I think the coaches that go deeper and everyone,
Mhm.
okay, my kids plays like this, Lisa plays like this. This is what makes her tick. This is what makes her. If
Mhm.
I do this, she'll shut down on me. He'll shut down
Yep.
on me. I,
Yep.
I got to know my words that I got to use with them. This is the difficulties of coaching. You don't have to worry about that as a player because you go out and perform.
Mhm.
If my team doesn't care about, I'll let them know. I'm gonna just kill it and whatever.
Yep.
My coach doesn't like it, he'll let me know. I don't need to worry about that. But the
Yeah.
coach, if your roster is 22, 16, whatever level you're coaching, you need to
Mhm.
make that whole thing click. Sometimes
Mhm.
when you're watching on your left eye and you're seeing arguments happen, maybe you got to separate it. Flip, you're working with him, they're not clicking, but you don't make a
Yeah.
scene. No one found out what you just did,
Yep.
but you
Yep.
manipulate it. And that's the clever parts about coaching. So I truly appreciate you even hitting on that because
Of
it's so
course.
vital because especially
Mhm.
today, it feels like our players are even super intelligent and sometimes can get
Mhm.
distracted because of technology,
Mhm.
social media, and them having access to so much
Mhm.
behind the scenes. Like when I
Yep.
was younger, I couldn't see the locker room like I did as I got older of a
Yeah.
professional environment because there was no resources to see that. So I quickly just want to get into coaching style and how do you set up your coaching style and what are the priorities you try to see that are important in setting up a coaching style?
Yeah, and I think for me, I'm so young and I'm so new to the coaching game that I don't know. I think at some point I'll have it figured out in years to come of what is the best. But I think for me, it's through my experiences as a player and through what I've seen as a player, and through, teams that I've played against, teams that I've played for, coaches that I've played for, what are the little things that I took from each little experience? What did I like that one coach did that I didn't like that another coach did that I don't want to ever do? And I think that's the beauty of being a player, and experiencing so many different styles of play across the country and internationally, experiencing different players, different coaches. And I think that you start to have an idea of like, okay, here's something that I really want to make an importance when I become a coach. And here's something that I really want to focus on. And here's something that I really want to avoid. And just finding those list of things. And I think naturally, if you go through that process, I think you start to find your style a little bit. For me, playing in Japan and playing in the US have been the biggest influences in my entire soccer career. Japan holds a special place in my heart. For the 2.5 years I spent there learning a tactical and technical side of the game. And I think for me, bringing that back and being like, man, if I could combine this with the mental and physical side that the US has, holy moly, that would be amazing. A lot of what we were taught there was without the ball at our feet. And I never experienced that as a youth player, and I never experienced that at the college level. I did a little bit at the pro level, but it was like, kind of like, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so late. I've never seen this stuff before. To go to Japan and experience stuff that I was on a team with 17-year-olds that could already execute and I felt a better understanding of the game than me at 24. I was completely humbled.
What was the
And
thing that stood out? What was the thing that stood out for you with the Japan experience? Like, what
yeah.
was that you said, oh, they worked on a lot ball without the feet? What was the main
Mhm.
focus?
The main focus was movement and understanding of movement as a unit and what that looked like. A lot of times they'd have cones set up and we'd have one less cone. So there was always one open cone. We used the tall construction cones and they were all spread out. And we all sat in between all the cones. And one player from the other team, we were broken up into two teams. One player would be told to go and try and tag the open cone, and the coach would start the time.
Mm.
And everyone had to shift across. Hey, you got this one. You got to close that gap. Oh my gosh. Okay. And then the player would try and sprint around and try and find the open. And you had to shift so fast as this player is sprinting around trying to tag an open cone. Right. And it's like communication and shifting, and he would time each group and we would compete our total times against each other. And we did stuff like that all the time where it's like, we would do, hours of a practice without a soccer ball. And I'm like, I don't get it. Like, this is so frustrating. I've never, ever had, practices without a soccer ball. But all of a sudden, it was like some of the best soccer I was playing ever. And I came back to the US with such a different confidence of my game and understanding of the game. And I truly felt like I was a different player. And even simple things like 4v2. You could like knock a cone down in the middle. So you're playing rondos, right? 4v2, you can knock a cone down in the middle. Or if the players intercept the pass and dribble out of the square, if the four players don't transition into defense and they dribble out of the square, everyone does 10 push-ups. So not only the two defending have to get pressure on the ball, but they also have to work on cover. So one has to press, one has to cover, because if they knock the cone down in the middle, you're done. Or if they get 10 passes, you're done. You stay in another round. So there was just much more to it. In the US, I'd only ever played 4v2. I'm like, what is all this? What do we have to knock down? What? How many passes do we have to get? And if we take it from them, we could dribble out and they get punished for it. Oh my gosh. Okay. So it was like all of that in a warm-up. That was the 20-minute warm-up we, had. So I guess for me, it was like, I have never experienced any of this before. It has helped my game immensely. In 2.5 years, I was a completely different player. Imagine if I was exposed to that 17 years old, 18 years old. And I understand, like, everything I do without the ball at my feet sets me up for the ball at my feet. I've only ever lit up when the ball's at my feet. Like, yes, I get to do something. Right? Now's the time. Right? And I think I personally, as a coach, would love to bring that style of helping players to understand without the ball at your feet. And if you understand the game, you can do incredible things with the ball at your feet, and you see runs and you see things so differently. So I think for me, it would be a huge focus on without the ball and the execution, it enhancing the execution and the success with the ball, and kind of build from there.
Fantastic. I mean, again, Bev, thank you so much.
Of course.
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolute pleasure.
No, of
Great
course.
dialogue talking about the beautiful game. It's always great to talk to someone that is so passionate about the game. I want to kind of give the floor to you to kind of close out with any plugs you have, anything you have going on for the future with your husband, yourself, and you want the community of soccer, football to know about, that we can get out there to help make our game better.
Yeah, no, and I'm so grateful to be a part of this, and I appreciate people like you covering the game, and obviously more specifically the women's game. It's on the complete rise, and it's only going to continue to be on a rise, and it rightfully deserves to be there. So thank you for covering the women's game, and for having this open discussion and open dialogue with me. I think for me, I just hope that I maybe, inspired somebody throughout this. I always say, even if you just touch one person's life, it's still an incredible thing. And I think you're spot on. You don't have to be the most amazing soccer player and strive to be the next big thing, but do what you love. You'll never work a day in your life. And I can tell you that from playing for 9 years, and being on the other side of it now of, wow, I had it so good. That was so much fun, and in the moments you're going through these roller coasters, like, I'm injured. This sucks. This is the worst thing ever. And then you come back out of it and you're like, I'm finally playing good again. This is so much fun, right? You ride those roller coaster waves. And then once you leave it, you're like, what? that was amazing. The best ride I've ever had. So I think just having fun with it. And if you enjoy the game, you're always going to get better because it's fun. It's funny. You don't even know you're getting better because you're training and you love it. So I think just be you, have fun, and be the best version of yourself that you could possibly be as a soccer player and as a human, because it's not just cool to be a really good soccer player. It's even more important to be a good person.
Fantastic. Thank you again.
Of course. Thank you so much.